Hey, what's up guys, it's Mike with Alpha Reptile back with another video today, and today we're back at PHS, Phoenix Herpetological Society with Joe. Joe, how's it going? And nice to be back here and filming with you again.
Good having you here, and always a pleasure to share the collection with anybody in town.
Awesome. Well, in this episode we're going to be talking about primarily their hot room or venomous room. There's a ton of venomous snakes all around us, including Elvis. We're going to be talking about a couple different snakes today. I believe King Cobra, the Black Mamba, and a couple more, so make sure you stay tuned and we'll get the show on the road.
So we do house a few venomous snakes here. These venomous snakes usually come to us because they've got nowhere else to go. So when people are found with venomous snakes in their home, either as illegal pets or other facilities housing them, become inundated and overflowing with venomous reptiles, we serve as a home to house those snakes, so that way we can help disperse them to zoos across the country where they can have a good home and work to educate animals about how cool all snakes are, even the venomous ones. And then that's our biggest goal here, is having these snakes in a safe place where they can be on display, where we can have kids in summer camps come see them, as well as families with tours and school groups come see these animals in a safe, controlled setting and get to learn a little bit about the important animals that make up ecosystems around the world. One of my favorite venomous snakes in our hot room here is the death adder. We have two species, the northern death adder and the rough-scaled death adder here. And both of those are really cool because they are a segment in an evolutionary story. If you look at elapids, things like cobras and mambas, you see a lot of thin-bodied snakes that are very fast-moving, and they're usually active hunters. You see a lot of cobras and mambas actively looking for food, chasing it down, and that's how they get their meals. Where if you look at our rattlesnake wall down here, or many of our vipers around the facility, they've got fat, thicker bodies, they don't do a lot of moving, and they're more of the lay and wait type predator, where they'll sit, find a place where they're undercover, where predators aren't going to see them, and where prey hopefully won't see them. And when they finally get a rat that comes by, a bird that lands, that's when they instantly strike and grab their meal. Death adders are kind of this cool area in between, where they are actually part of the elapid family with cobras and mambas. But if you were just to look at their body, they've got that fat, kind of sluggish body like the vipers do, despite being a member of the elapid family. They sit and they wait for their prey to come to them. They even have a different colored tail that they use for caudal luring to hopefully lure in small mammals or even birds that they can eat. When something finally gets close enough to them, just like the vipers, they'll finally strike and ambush their prey. When you do see them go for their prey, it's usually very similar to how vipers go for their prey. They'll strike as soon as something gets close enough. The differences between them and vipers become more apparent when you start seeing them move. When you get them down on the floor, when we're taking them out for a cage cleaning, they're much more active and they move much quicker than vipers because they are still elapids. And their venom is the other interesting thing. Typically speaking, across the viper world, you're going to see a lot of hemotoxic venoms that are slower acting, cause a lot of local tissue damage, generally speaking. And then with elapids, you get the neurotoxic venom that actually shuts down neural communication between the brain and various parts of the body. And that's what you see in the death adders. Despite them being an elapid that looks like a viper and hunts like a viper, they still have that very much elapid venom that's neurotoxic and very fast acting. We can't give a tour of our hot room without at least stopping to talk about Elvis. He is our about 11 to 12 foot king cobra. Last time we had him out and got a weight on him, he was a full 25 pounds, so he's a very large king cobra, but not as large as they can get. King cobras are the largest species of venomous snake in the world, with some of them being recorded as big as 18 feet. And the cool thing about that, you've probably seen that a lot of cobras can lift their body a third of the way off the ground and continue moving. So if you were to come across one of those giant 18-foot king cobras, that's a snake that can lift his head 6 feet off the ground, look me in the eyes, and still be moving forward, which is just an impressive animal. Elvis, though, wasn't from the wild. He was actually, as far as we know, a captive bred animal, but he was held illegally by somebody who lived in New York. He traveled out of state, picked him up somewhere where it was legal to have one, and drove him back to New York, a high-rise apartment. And that's where law enforcement found our friend Elvis here. And thankfully they were willing to transport him all the way down here so we can give him another life in captivity where we could educate people about these animals. Otherwise, without us being here, without some sanctuary that's able to handle animals this big, he would have had to be euthanized when he was found. Another cool thing about him is king cobras. Their scientific name, Ophiophagus hanna, the first part of it, the genus, Ophiophagus, literally translates to snake eater. So one of the big troubles with king cobras in captivity is that they really only like to eat snakes. And being a reptile shelter in the business of saving snakes, we never wanted to have to feed any of our snakes other snakes. So over years and with a lot of trial and error, we finally convinced and converted Elvis into eating a fully rat diet, which really helps with his care and maintenance and makes us feel better about not having to feed snakes to our snakes. So this is Cruella, another one of our big black mambas. She is probably our biggest one. She's pushing about 11 feet. And she's not quite soda can width yet, but that gives you a rough idea of how thick around she is. She's probably one of the most misunderstood animals that we have here at PHS. A lot of people will come through and she's an impressive snake, so they'll instantly point at her and go, that's one of the most venomous snakes in the world, it's one of the fastest, one of the most aggressive. And they're right about one of those points. It is one of the fastest species of snake in the world. You often hear that it can travel at speeds of about 12 miles per hour, which is very fast for a large snake like her. But where people start getting it wrong is with ideas about them being the most venomous snake. They do have a highly potent neurotoxic venom that specifically targets shutting down communication between the brain and airways, but it's far from being the most venomous snake in the world. I believe the quickest anybody has ever died from a black mamba bite, it took a full 17 hours, which is more than enough time to get to the hospital in the developed world. And they also really don't deserve the aggressive reputation that they have. Just like people, snakes can have bad days, but by and large, if I open her cage and move slowly with her, have gloves, have hooks, and I don't actively grab her with tongs or something that makes her feel like she's being restrained or pinched, she's just as easy to maneuver around as a large boa. Of course, the stakes are higher, but she's just as happy to be steered right into a bucket, comes out and goes back in all on her own with minor guidance from the hook. So they're really not as aggressive as people like to make them out to be. Where a lot of that reputation comes from is once they've been scared and that fight or flight takes it over. She's a large snake. She's 11 feet, so coming towards you even halfway of her body is going to feel like she's chasing you for a mile, especially when that adrenaline's going. But in reality, she's just looking for a way out of the situation. And it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. They're definitely way more afraid of us than we are of them. She is currently dealing with something that we see in captive snakes and wild snakes, is retained shed on their eye. When snakes shed every now and then, the spectacle that covers and protects their eye won't come off with the rest of their shed. It's always really important that you check the sheds of your snakes and make sure that those are coming off healthily, because if they build up, it can eventually start to affect how well they can see the world around them. And I definitely want her to know it's me and not a threat coming when I deal with her. Usually those will come off on their own with regular soaking and misting down, keeping the humidity up in the tank. Hopefully she'll rub it off. So we discovered it about a week ago, so I've been giving her baths every other day since we discovered that, and also misting down her tank extra to hopefully work that off. And we always try to do the most passive, hands-off technique for dealing with issues like this first. And over time, if it doesn't resolve itself, that's when with a team of people and spotters, we'll go in and carefully remove it. So Arizona is home to 13 species of rattlesnake, which makes us home to more species than any other state. But one of my favorite Arizona rattlesnakes has to be the speckled rattlesnake. Now these have a couple different color phases they can come in. There are blue specks, red specks, and white specks. This one, depending on who you ask, looks like a white or blue speck, somewhere on that spectrum of the speckled rattlesnake colors. And they're really cool because they are an incredibly adapted ambush hunter. If you look at their patterns will almost always perfectly mimic the rocks of the surrounding area they're found in. So people will be hiking on trails around here and they'll step sometimes not even a foot, 2 feet away from a rattlesnake and have no idea it's there until they get buzzed by the tail, and you know, hey, don't step on me. And that's exactly what it's there for, is to warn things that are too big to eat that they're there and they don't want to be stepped on. But without that rattle, you could walk right over them and have no idea because of how developed their camouflage is. They are a kind of harder species to get started in captivity. They like to prey on the lizards that come up and bask on those same rocks. So being a shelter that really only feeds pre-killed, frozen thawed mice to their snakes, sometimes there's a little bit of a conversion time, just like with Elvis getting him to eat rats. It takes a little while to get our speckled rattlesnakes to eat the frozen thawed, but with enough time and persistence, they can all be transitioned eventually. So out of all the snakes that we have here in our collection, by far my favorite to work with are the elapids, the cobras and the mambas. In the cobra world, you have two big groups, spitters and non-spitting cobras, or at least that's how I'll break them up today. With these animals, like I said, they're very active hunters. They like to actually actively look for their food and search it out and chase it down. Spitting cobras have the added adaptation of being able to spit their venom. This doesn't help them with acquiring food in any way. It's, if anything, more similar to a rattlesnake's rattle than it is to a way to catch food. Their ability to spit is just a defense measure. They're really the only snakes that have developed a defensive way of using their venom. If you look at rattlesnakes, cobras, mambas, for the most part, all of their venom is designed for one thing, and that's food acquisition. They never want to use it on a person or want to use it on an animal that's larger and more threatening than them. Spitting cobras are the one exception to that, where they've actually developed the ability to rear up, put up that big hood to warn people or predators to stay away. And if that warning isn't given its space and it isn't paid attention to, that's when they're able to kind of tilt back and spit their venom. This is really the only purposefully defensive use of venom in the snake world, and that venom, to do any damage, has to make it into the eyes of whatever predator is coming towards them. If it gets on your skin, it's not going to do anything. It just kind of feels sticky and you can wash it off. But if it gets into an open cut, somewhere where it can get in the bloodstream, or more commonly into someone's eyes or a predator's eyes, that's when it can cause some serious issues, including temporary to permanent blindness. So the best thing you can do is just instantly wash it out, or one better than that, if you're a keeper working with them, we always have a face mask on or eye protection to guard against getting that venom in our eyes. On top of using goggles to work safely with spitting cobras, we use equipment for working with all of our snakes here. We don't do any sort of free handling with our venomous snakes. Everything is always at the end of a pair of tongs or at the end of a hook with bite gloves on. That way we can ensure that we're doing things in the safest way for us as keepers, and also making sure that we're never putting an animal at risk.
So that's gonna wrap up the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about some venomous snakes here in the Phoenix Herpetological Society. I know I certainly learned. I think my dad enjoyed it as well. He's over there. And I hope you guys took as much away from this as I have. Joe, I want to thank you very much for bringing us around, taking time out of your busy day to letting me come and bug you guys. Hopefully it kind of raises exposure and teaches people about the world of hot or venomous reptile keeping.
Thank you so much for coming by and stopping by to do another video here.
Thank you.
We always appreciate getting the word out about our mission here, which is the biggest thing. We want to educate the public about what cool animals reptiles are, venomous or not. They all serve an important part in their ecosystems and are important to learn about. So if you're interested and you're in the Phoenix area and you want to find out more about us, you can visit our website, phoenixherp.com, where you can find out about upcoming tours, special events, summer camps, volunteer opportunities. And if you ever are interested in any of our snakes that you do see on a tour or that you saw in this video, we do have a program on our website where you can virtually adopt an animal, where you get to name that animal, put up a name card saying adopted by, and for $25 a month you help us pay some of the costs of taking care of those animals. You get to contribute to the mission here of keeping these animals alive, giving them a safe place, and teaching everybody about how cool reptiles are.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for coming by. It was a lot of fun.
Not a problem. I hope to be back again.
Awesome.